Welcome back to Prashant's Perspective. We've got a really fantastic deep dive lined up for you today.
Yeah, we're really getting into the actual nuts and bolts of the home loan strategy landscape for 2026.
Right, but before we get rolling, I really need to put a crucial disclaimer right out there. Today's conversation is purely for awareness and educational purposes.
Exactly.
The goal here is just to help you, our listener, make better informed choices about your financial future. This is definitely not professional financial, legal, or investment advice.
Because everyone's situation is completely unique, right?
Yeah.
Loan terms vary so wildly, so please just consult with a certified financial advisor or your bank before making any huge financial commitments.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that out of the way, let's get into the mission of today's deep dive. We are talking about the big one today.
The massive one.
Right. Buying a home is literally the largest check most of us will ever sign in our entire lives. So why does it always feel like this 20-year weight on our shoulders?
Because it is a massive psychological burden. I mean, you go from the relatively fluid life of renting to suddenly signing your name next to a number with more zeros than you've ever seen.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
It feels heavy because it dictates your future choices. It dictates where you work, how much risk you can take in your career, and even when you can afford to take a vacation.
Or if you can take a vacation at all.
Right. But the reality is, it really doesn't have to be a trap. If you approach it with the right framework, that 20-year wait can actually become a very manageable strategic stepping stone.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really understand the data and the actual strategies for 2026, we really need to ground it in reality. Let's talk about Ajay.
Right, our classic example.
Yeah, think of Ajay as our stand-in for so many professionals right now. He's working in Pune, doing well in his career, mid-30s, and he's at that really crucial life stage.
He's been renting for years.
Exactly. And the landlord keeps hiking the rent every 11 months like clockwork. And the emotional pull to finally just own his own walls is getting stronger every single day.
It's that urge to nest, yeah.
Right. So he's looking at making that transition, and the sheer emotional weight of making that first daunting down payment is literally keeping him up at night. So how does someone like Ajay actually know if it's the right time to jump in, financially speaking?
That is the multi-core question for Ajay right there.
Yeah.
The emotional desire to own a home is incredibly powerful, but it just cannot override the financial reality.
Right.
We use a very specific financial readiness signal for the 2026 landscape. It's essentially a three-part checklist. First, we look at the 20 plus 10 rule.
Okay, 20 plus 10.
Yeah, everyone knows you need 20% of the property value saved up for the down payment because banks generally only fund up to 80% of the agreement value.
Sure, it's standard.
But here is the critical part Ajay might be missing. He needs an additional 10% in completely liquid cash.
Wait a second, let me just push back on that for a minute. Because saving 20% for a down payment in a major hub like Pune is already taking Ajay the better part of a decade, probably.
Oh, easily.
Property prices in areas like Wakad or Belawadi are just shooting up. Asking him to wait until he has 30% saved up total, I mean, that might mean he just gets priced out of the market entirely while he waits on the sidelines hoarding all this cash. How is that realistic?
Well, what's fascinating here is the psychology behind that extra 10% and why ignoring it is literally the fastest way to ruin your financial life.
Okay, how so?
We often suffer from this sort of tunnel vision when buying a house. We only look at the builder's sticker price, but that 10% covers all the hidden frictional costs that hit you the exact moment you get the keys.
Right.
We're talking about stamp duty, which sits around 7% in Maharashtra, plus registration fees, and then the initial interior work.
Yeah, the house is just a shell when you get it.
Exactly. You need a functional modular kitchen, you need wardrobes, you need basic lighting and civil tweaks. If Ajay doesn't have that 10% in liquid cash, what happens?
He probably puts it on a credit card.
Yes. He turns to high-interest personal loans or just maxes out his credit cards just to make the house livable. Suddenly, before he's even paid his very first home loan EMI, he's drowning in unsecured debt at like 18% interest.
Man, I see. So it's about preventing a debt spiral on day one.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to finally get your dream home and then be totally stressed out of your mind trying to pay for the paint on the walls.
Exactly.
So that's the first financial signal. What about the timing?
That brings us to the second signal, the 7-year horizon. Ajay needs to commit to staying in Pune, and likely in that specific property, for at least 7 to 10 years.
Why so long?
Because real estate is highly illiquid. When you factor in the massive frictional cost of buying we just talked about, plus the interest paid to the bank in the first few years, and the eventual brokerage cost of selling,
It adds up fast.
it takes significant time for the property's capital appreciation to actually put you in the green. If Ajay thinks he might move to Bangalore or Delhi for a tech role in 3 years, buying right now is just a terrible idea.
You know, you hear that so often. Someone buys a place because of FOMO, fear of missing out, and then gets relocated, and suddenly they're managing a property from 1,000 miles away.
Which is a complete nightmare.
Right. Dealing with tenant turnover, maintenance issues over WhatsApp. Nobody wants that. And the third signal.
Life stage alignment. The location has to fit his long-term family needs. It's not just about finding the nicest apartment with the best clubhouse.
Right. The flashy amenities.
Yeah, it's about daily logistics. Is it close to good schools for his kids so they aren't spending 2 hours in a bus every day? Is the commute to major work hubs like Karadi or Hinjawadi manageable?
Traffic in Pune is no joke.
Exactly. If Ajay buys a beautiful home but spends 3 hours a day in traffic, his overall quality of life plummets. The home has to serve the family's life stage, not just their aesthetic preferences.
Framing it as a lifestyle roadmap rather than just dry statistics really changes the perspective. It's about how Ajay actually lives his life day to day, which really leads us perfectly into the actual guide for paying this thing off.
Right.
Once he makes the plunge, how much of his paycheck should he actually be handing over to the bank every month?
We call this the golden rule of allocation. And the absolute sweet spot is allocating 30% to 40% of your monthly take-home salary to the home loan EMI.
30 to 40%. Okay, so that leaves a solid 60% for actually enjoying life and investing for retirement.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's about maintaining your humanity while paying off a massive liability.
I love that phrasing, maintaining your humanity.
Because you don't want to be house poor, you don't want to be sitting in a gorgeous living room, but you can't afford to go out to dinner, or you're stressing over buying your kids a new pair of shoes.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, that 30 to 40% rule sits under a hard ceiling, the debt ceiling. Your total monthly obligations, meaning your home loan, plus any car leases, plus any personal loans, must never cross 50% of your net income.
Period.
Period. Half your income has to remain yours, free and clear, just to cover life.
Think about it this way. If Ajay is bringing home a solid salary, but he's already got a hefty car EMI for that SUV he bought last year, and he took out a personal loan for a family vacation, his capacity for a home loan shrinks drastically if he wants to stay under that 50% ceiling.
Precisely. And honestly, for maximum peace of mind in 2026, we highly recommend building in a safety buffer. Try to keep that home loan EMI closer to 25% if you can.
That sounds tough, but smart.
Think about Ajay's daily life in Pune. You have recurring family expenses that constantly inflate. Groceries, school fees, utilities.
Let's elevate this too. Because people think of emergencies as just a refrigerator breaking down. But in a city like Pune, if Ajay buys into a premium high-rise, society maintenance fees can spontaneously jump by 20% annually.
Oh, absolutely.
Or the property tax gets revised upwards. That eats directly into his safety buffer.
That is a brilliant point.
Yeah.
The cost of owning the home goes up every single year, even if the EMI stays exactly the same. That lower EMI percentage gives him the slack in his budget to absorb those shocks without lying awake staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let's say Ajay has his buffer, he's totally disciplined, and he wants to beat the system. We're talking about rapid repayment strategies, getting rid of that 20-year wait in a fraction of the time.
This is my favorite part.
Let's walk through some what-if scenarios. Scenario 1, the one extra EMI rule. I love this one because it's just so actionable.
It really is.
Normally, you pay 12 EMIs a year. But if Ajay can manage to scrape together enough surplus cash to pay just one additional EMI each year, making it 13 payments annually, he fundamentally alters the math of the loan.
It really is the most elegant strategy out there, because that extra 13th payment goes entirely toward the principal amount.
Right, skipping the interest queue.
Yes. In those early years, your regular EMI is mostly paying off the bank's interest, but a prepayment attacks the root of the debt. By doing this consistently, just one extra payment a year, he can shave a massive 4 to 5 years off a 20-year loan.
4 to 5 years of freedom bought back with one extra payment a year. You could fund that with an annual Diwali bonus, a tax refund, or literally just by cutting back slightly on discretionary spending over 12 months. That is incredible.
That changes everything.
But I was looking at the math on another strategy, scenario 2, the 5% EMI escalator. What if Ajay just bumps his EMI up by 5% every year as his salary grows?
This is where you see the compounding effect work in your favor instead of the bank's. Every year, as Ajay gains experience and seniority, his salary is likely going to increase. Maybe he gets an 8% or 10% raise.
Hopefully, yeah.
The strategy here is to voluntarily instruct the bank to increase his monthly EMI payment by just 5% every year.
So he barely feels the pinch.
Exactly, because his income is growing faster than the EMI is increasing. But that accelerating payment aggressively attacks the principal balance. If he commits to this 5% escalator, he slashes his 20-year tenure nearly in half.
Wow.
He could be entirely debt-free in 10 to 12 years.
10 years instead of 20. He could own his home outright before his kids even finish high school. That changes the entire trajectory of his family's wealth.
It's generational wealth building.
Now, scenario 3 is a bit more structural, but incredibly powerful. Overdraft facilities, or what some banks call max saver accounts. Walk us through how this actually works for Ajay in practice.
A max saver account links your home loan to a standard savings-like current account. The way it works is brilliant. Any surplus cash Ajay has, maybe his salary hits on the first of the month, or he has a 6-month emergency fund sitting around, he parks it in this linked account.
Okay.
The bank calculates the interest on his home loan daily, based on his outstanding principal, minus whatever cash is sitting in that max saver
I
account.
have to make sure I have this right. So if he has an outstanding loan of 50 lakhs, and he parks 5 lakhs of his emergency savings in the max saver account, the bank only charges him interest on 45 lakhs for those specific days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It reduces the interest burden daily. But the true beauty of it is the total liquidity. That 5 lakhs isn't locked away in a fixed deposit or handed over to the bank permanently.
So we can still use it.
Yes. If his car breaks down next week and he needs 50,000 rupees for repairs, he just swipes his debit card or transfers it out. The interest calculation adjusts automatically that very night.
That is so smart.
It allows Ajay to make his lazy money work aggressively against his debt while keeping it completely accessible for life's emergencies.
So what does this all mean? It means Ajay has immense power over his debt if he uses these tools. But he also has to navigate a complete minefield of traps.
Oh, the traps are everywhere.
Let's run through the common pitfalls he absolutely must avoid. Number 1 has to be the CIBIL trap. Let's break this down for anyone who hasn't looked at their credit profile recently.
It is shocking how many people forget to check their credit scores before applying for the biggest loan of their lives. CIBIL stands for Credit Information Bureau India Limited. It's the primary agency that tracks your borrowing history.
Right.
Your CIBIL score literally dictates your interest rate. If a J score is slightly bruised, say because of a forgotten 500 rupee credit card annual fee from 3 years ago, his score might drop from an excellent 800 to a mediocre 740.
Just from one tiny mistake.
Yes, and because of that, the bank might offer him an interest rate that is 0.25% higher than their best market rate.
And a lot of people think 0.25%. That sounds like a rounding error.
It sounds like nothing until you compound it over 20 years on a massive principal. That tiny fraction of a percentage translates to lakhs of rupees in extra interest paid to the bank. Checking your CIBIL score 6 months before applying, resolving any disputes, and cleaning up your payment history is the highest hourly rate work you will ever do in your life.
Trap number 2. The tenure trap. This one is so seductive. The loan officer smiles and offers you a 30-year loan instead of a 20-year loan. The monthly EMI drops significantly. It feels like a massive win for your monthly cash flow. Why is this a trap?
Because you are dramatically extending the time the bank has to charge you interest. It lowers the monthly pain, but it maximizes the lifetime pain.
Ouch.
When you opt for a 30-year loan, the math works out so that you often end up paying back double the original principal and interest alone. You borrow 50 lakhs, and you pay back 150 lakhs in total over 30 years.
That's insane.
You are literally buying a house for yourself and a whole separate house for the bank. Unless you are using a very aggressive, disciplined prepayment strategy alongside it and actually investing the difference, avoid the 30-year tenure.
That is a brutal way to look at it, but so true. Buy a house for yourself, not the bank. And the final trap, the insurance gap.
When you take on a massive liability like a home loan, You must secure a term insurance policy that covers the entire loan amount. If something tragic happens to Ajay, you do not want his grieving family to inherit a massive debt they cannot pay.
Which leads to the bank auctioning off the home.
Exactly. The term insurance ensures that if the worst happens, the debt dies with the borrower, and the family gets to keep the asset free and clear. It's a non-negotiable part of financial readiness.
That's sobering, but absolutely vital.
This raises an important question, though, as we look at the broader landscape. Listeners always have these very specific, nuanced dilemmas they get stuck on.
Yes. Let's slow down and look at these dilemmas, because this is where the real debates actually happen in personal finance. I'll throw the dilemma at you, we'll hash it out, and you give us the definitive answer based on the 2026 data.
Bring it on.
Dilemma 1. Invest surplus cash in the market or prepay the home loan. And let me play devil's advocate here. Mathematically, Indian equity markets, like the Nifty 50, have historically returned around 12 to 14% over the long term.
Sure.
So if his home loan is costing him 9%, shouldn't he just put that surplus cash into an index fund and pocket the spread?
On a pure spreadsheet, assuming perfect market conditions, yes.
Yeah.
But life isn't lived on a spreadsheet. We have to look at risk-adjusted returns and sequence of returns risk.
Right.
The market might give you 14% over 20 years, but it might also give you negative returns for 3 years straight right when you need the money. Prepaying the loan offers incredible psychological ROI. More importantly, it is a guaranteed, risk-free savings of around 9%.
Guaranteed is the key word there.
Exactly. You cannot easily find a guaranteed post-tax return of 9% anywhere else in the market. Plus, getting rid of that monthly obligation frees up your future cash flow entirely. For most people, the peace of mind of prepaying vastly outweighs the theoretical market spread.
Dilemma 2. Fixed or floating interest rate.
Floating, without a doubt. In the Indian market, floating rates offer the best flexibility. But the most critical advantage comes down to RBI regulations.
The prepayment rules.
Yes. Regulatory rules generally prevent banks from charging prepayment penalties on floating rate home loans for individuals. If you lock into a fixed rate, the bank will often slap you with massive penalty fees if you try to pay the loan off early.
So it traps you.
Right. If you want to use the rapid repayment strategies we discussed, the extra EMI, the escalator, you absolutely need a floating rate so you aren't penalized for being financially responsible.
Dilemma 3, and this one trips up so many people. The new versus old tax regime. I hear people say, I need to keep my home loan going for as long as possible to maximize my tax deductions. Under Section 24B of the Income Tax Act, you can claim up to 2 lakhs in interest deduction. Shouldn't Ajay stretch his loan to save on taxes?
This is a classic trap. First, let's look at the math of that deduction. A 2 lakh deduction on a 30% tax slab saves you roughly 60,000 rupees a year in taxes. But to get that 60,000 in savings, you're paying 2 lakhs in interest to the bank.
You are spending a rupee to save 30 paise.
Exactly. Furthermore, under the new tax regime, which is becoming the default and offers higher flat standard exemptions for young earners, the interest deduction benefits for a self-occupied property are largely gone.
So it's a moot point anyway.
The rule of thumb here is simple. Don't let the tax tails wag the financial dog. Do not stay in massive debt just to save a tiny, inefficient amount on your taxes. Your primary focus should be entirely on paying off the principal as fast as humanly possible.
Don't let the tax tail wag the financial dog. I really love that. Focus on the principal, not the write-off. Well, that brings us to the end of our roadmap. We've taken Ajay from the anxiety of renting, through the readiness signals of liquid cash and life stage alignment, into the sweet spot of the golden allocation.
And armed him with the rapid repayment tools to crush a 20-year loan in a decade.
Exactly. Before we leave you, consider this. What if the ultimate luxury in 2026 isn't actually owning a home at all, but having the ultimate geographic mobility to chase the best opportunities globally without being tied down to a piece of concrete? Something to think about as you weigh your own readiness. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure you subscribe to the Prashant's Perspective YouTube channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss these deep dive audio episodes. We are constantly breaking down the strategies you need to navigate this landscape.
Wealth isn't about how much you own. It's about how much of your time you own. Every extra rupee you put into your principal today is an hour of freedom you're buying back for your future self. Don't let a 20-year loan dictate your life's pace. Take the steering wheel, use the strategies we discussed, and make sure that one day you don't just own a house, you truly own your life.